Mine is to give a reflection on the progress of conference up until now. In particular, on day 2 of the Northern Cape Investment and Jobs Conference, reinforced a coordinated and multi-sectoral approach to advancing economic transformation through industrialization. The discussions placed strong emphasis on mobilizing investment, strengthening energy security, and expanding the role of MSMEs as drivers of inclusive growth. The overarching objective remains to unlock large-scale investment, accelerate economic inclusion, and significantly increase job opportunities. In this context, the Northern Cape Investment and Jobs Conference has set the following strategic targets. Number 1 is to grow the provincial GDP to 200 billion rand, and secondly, to create the all-important 60,000 sustainable job opportunities. On the second day of conference, the Department of Electricity and Energy positioned the Northern Cape as a strategic renewable energy hub, highlighting its global competitiveness in solar and wind resources. Key priorities included addressing the national energy quadrilemma and scaling infrastructure investment to ensure long-term energy security. Significant progress has already been made through independent power producer projects, while future initiatives such as the proposed Upington Solar Power Park are expected to catalyze industrial growth, particularly in data centers and critical minerals, thereby strengthening the province's contribution to the GDP. The Department of Small Business Development emphasized the central role of MSMEs and cooperatives in job creation, aligned with the National Development Plan 2030. Efforts are focused on improving coordination through a unified national framework, expanding financial support, and enhancing market access. Targeted investments in the Northern Cape, particularly in rural and youth enterprises, demonstrate a commitment to inclusive economic participation and grassroots development. The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition reinforced the strategic shift from a resource-based economy to one driven by value addition and industrialization. Through initiatives such as the special economic zones, catalytic infrastructure projects, and mineral beneficiation policies, the department aims to deepen local manufacturing capacity, unlock downstream opportunities, and integrate the province into regional and global value chains. In as far as job creation is concerned, economic transformation and sustainable job creation in the Northern Cape rely heavily on cross-sector collaboration driven by the just energy transition, focusing on priority sectors like green hydrogen, new energy mechanical, and clean energies. Currently, the National Empowerment Fund, NEF, has established a blended fund that has spent over 300 million rand to support 322 transactions, creating over 1,300 job opportunities. Despite this, and alongside the Department of Employment and Labour, providing free recruitment services that facilitated 7,205 job placements in 2025-26, SMMEs continue to face major barriers. To address these challenges, proposed action items include establishing skills development zones with the Office of the Premier and implementing a one-stop shop model to reduce red tape through co-located government departments. Because skills development is critical, plans emphasize integrating regional skills planning upfront for all major infrastructure projects and expanding partnerships with TVET colleges and universities to to create centers of specialization for sectors like renewable energy and mining beneficiation. Ultimately, achieving these goals requires full compliance with labor legislation, continuous pooling of resources across government, the private sector, and all educational institutions. In as far as renewable energy is concerned, the Northern Cape, Northwest, and Limpopo province are emerging as South Africa's renewable energy hubs, leveraging strong solar and wind resources, critical minerals, and targeted skills development. The strategy focuses on moving beyond raw exports towards local beneficiation and processing to create higher value sustainable jobs and drive resilient economic growth. Energy parks are proposed to accelerate this shift through prioritized grid access, streamlined approvals, inclusive procurement, and aligned skills programs. However, limited transmission capacity remains the key constraint, with a large pipeline of projects at risk if infrastructure and generation are not better coordinated. Panelists highlighted the need for policy certainty, regular procurement cycles, simplified regulations, and transmission-led planning to unlock broader industrialization opportunities such as battery storage, data centers, as well as green hydrogen. Strengthening skills, localization, and SMME participation is essential to convert short-term construction jobs into long-term employment across the entire value chain. Coordinated government action, regional power integration, and targeted incentives will be critical to positioning renewables as a foundation for inclusive long-term industrial and community development. In as far as mining and beneficiation is concerned, the plenary panel on mining and beneficiation in the Northern Cape highlighted that while the province possesses significant mineral resources, successful downstream beneficiation is hindered by several systemic risks. Industry leaders and government officials identified electricity reliability and high costs as primary threats to smelter competitiveness alongside severe logistics bottlenecks, while rail and road infrastructure are insufficient for heavy mineral volumes. Furthermore, the sector faces challenges from policy uncertainty, which deter long-term investment, and the skilled professional brain drain driven by poor local municipal services. Illegal mining also continues to pose significant safety and environmental risks that undermine legitimate economic efforts. To combat these issues, the panel emphasized that beneficiation must be pursued through a collaborative, multi-stakeholder approach rather than unilateral mandates, ensuring that projects remain commercially viable as well as bankable. To drive growth and investor confidence, the panel proposed several strategic action items focused on modernization as well as efficiency. A key priority is reducing red tape by targeting a 180-day turnaround for mining rights and permit applications, while maintaining transparency during the MPRDA policy review process. Financial support will be bolstered by scaling the National Exploration Fund through a combination of 400 million rand in state funding and 600 million rand in private capital. Infrastructure improvements will focus on prioritizing transport corridors and continuing industry collaboration with Transnet. Additionally, the province intends to leverage digital tools such as virtual core library to attract remote investors and will explore pilot beneficiation projects using idle plants where economically feasible. Ultimately, the panel concluded that social inclusion and community upliftment are best achieved when these mining projects are financially sustainable and integrated with regional planning. In as far as tourism is concerned, the tourism breakaway session at the Northern Cape Jobs and Investment Conference emphasized that provincial growth depends on a shift towards a more focused, collaborative and investment-driven approach that prioritizes quality over quantity. Participants identified the need to develop bankable investment-ready projects supported by tools like the Tourism Investment Atlas and the catalytic initiatives such as the Square Kilometre Array. While emerging opportunities like demise market and heritage preservation show promise, significant hurdles remain, including overextended resources, implementing gaps in basic infrastructure, and the lack of professional capability to commercialize local assets. To overcome these challenges, the session proposed stronger intergovernmental coordination, more substantive support from the National Department of Tourism, and the adoption of locality-specific strategies through the district development model to ensure inclusive economic benefits. In as far as agriculture is concerned, the panel emphasized that the Northern Cape has strong potential to transform its agricultural sector by developing a fully integrated value chain, shifting from a primary production focus to one that includes processing, packaging, branding, and export. Although the province is already a major producer of high-value crops and livestock, it currently loses significant value to fragmentation and limited downstream activities. Strengthening agri-processing, such as in dried fruit, in meat, in wine and nuts, along with better use of regional brands like Namakwa, Karoo, and Kalahari, can unlock greater economic returns and drive job creation. The discussion also highlighted the importance of expanding access to global markets, supported by improved compliance, certification, and trade linkages, while strengthening local procurement to support domestic demand. At the same time, integrating emerging farmers remain critical, requiring improved access to land, finance and skills, as well as a better utilization of CPA land and cooperative models. Investment is enabling infrastructure, particularly logistics, cold chain systems and export corridors, was identified as essential to connect producers to markets efficiently. The panel agreed that coordinated investment, stronger chain integration, and inclusive participation are key to positioning the Northern Cape as a competitive agri-processing and export hub. Overall, Day 2 underscored the importance of policy alignment, infrastructure investment, and institutional coordination in unlocking the Northern Cape economic potential, with a clear focus on translating strategic intent into tangible community-level impact. I thank you.